our government had put quite a bit of focus on building new infrastructure and helping maintain the existing infrastructure that we already have. Because we believe that infrastructure is the foundation of building a stronger middle class, create opportunities, create jobs, economic growth, as well as enable our partners to put more emphasis on building greener communities, sustainable communities, as well as provide opportunities for those who are generally sometimes left behind because of their socio-economic situation. So building inclusive communities is also part of that. So in order to deliver on that commitment of tripling the investments that we are making into infrastructure, this is the first time that Prime Minister Trudeau has created a standalone ministry just solely focused on infrastructure and building stronger communities. So this is the first time in the history of Canada where infrastructure in the past was part of other departments. Now it's a standalone ministry. First of all, our communities have lacked infrastructure investments for last decade or so. So there's a large infrastructure deficit that exists. Second is that when you talk about infrastructure, you have to have a long-term vision because infrastructure takes planning. It takes a number of years before a project can be undertaken. So we wanted to make sure that we are giving a long-term, sustainable, predictable funding model to our communities, and that's why we are developing this 10-year plan to deal with the deficit, to give them predictability and sustainable funding. But at the core of our desire to have this standalone ministry and do the work that we need to do ties back to the three themes of economic growth and opportunities, building greener communities and inclusive welcoming places. When you look at the investments that federal government would make over the next decade, we are tripling our investments from approximately $60 billion to 180 over $180 billion. And that is the money that we leverage with the provincial support and municipal support. And when you look at the total investment plan for next decade by public bodies, is close to $800 billion that will be invested into public infrastructure in the next decade. But for federal government, we are focused on 5 areas of investment. We want to build public transit systems so people don't have to drive their personal vehicles all the time. And it's also sustainable mode of transportation. Cycling infrastructure ties into that. And then this other component is green infrastructure. How do we enable our municipalities to reduce their impact on the environment or make their existing infrastructure more resilient to the impact of climate change, or invest into new technologies to stop the production of greenhouse gas emissions. And the third component is social infrastructure. Focus on affordable housing, on social housing, building shelters for women fleeing domestic violence, recreational cultural infrastructure, investing into early learning and childcare so that kids grow up to be they have the opportunity to succeed when they have the opportunity to engage early on in the learning. And the fourth component is improving our trade corridors, right? So building better trade corridors, bridges, and the roadway network. And the fifth area is supporting our rural and northern communities, more isolated communities, because their needs are unique and different from needs in urban centers. Despite the historic investments that we're making in infrastructure, there will still remain a large infrastructure deficit in Canadian communities because of population growth, because of existing infrastructure is aging. You need to replace it. So when resources are limited, you need to look for creative, innovative ways of stretching your dollars. And we believe that if we can mobilize institutional investors, pension funds, and private sector to partner with the federal government and to partner with provinces and municipalities to build the infrastructure, new infrastructure that is needed, that is in the public interest, and there's a revenue attached to it. I think there's potential for us to leverage public dollars by engaging private sector to get more work done, to get more infrastructure built, which helps not only create immediate jobs, but also make your economy more productive in the long term.